I'm sitting here in this gorgeous forest in the south of France, and I've been reading all morning, and a few things came up as part of those readings that I think I wanted to talk a little bit about, because they come up a lot and it's important. I want to talk about the scariest, most terrifying proposition that most of us will ever face in our lives, and that is the space. The space is awful. We hate it. As human beings, the space is kind of like our worst nightmare. So why is that? And am I being overly dramatic when I say it's the scariest, most terrifying proposition that we almost ever have to face? I don't think I am. I mean, you might say that maybe that's death, but in a way that is a kind of space, isn't it? It's the nothingness. It's the time when something ends and we don't know what's going to replace it. It's a kind of death, and in tarot, the death card means change. It means letting go of something before we know what the next bit is, and there's no guarantees. Now, tarot talks a lot about the space. If we look into the cards, there are two cards that stand out immediately, which are the heroes of the tarot story, the Fool and the Magician. And the Fool is the potential of all things. So I've talked about the Fool many times, and how the Fool is a leap of faith, a new beginning. It's a jump into something new. And that's fine, and we all, if we know anything about tarot at all, we understand that about the Fool. But the Fool also has the opposite side of that coin, which is jumping into the unknown, jumping with no guarantees that things will work out the way you think they're going to. Are you jumping, the card asks us, are you jumping with joy into something amazing because you're brave and bold and fearless? Or are you jumping onto some sharp, jagged rocks underneath that are going to make you rule the day you ever jumped off the cliff? We don't know. And that's the point. We're not supposed to. So what follows the Fool is the Magician. And the Magician is where we are able, through the use of our knowledge of ourselves and our gifts and our abilities, that we are able to make things happen. And let's go back again to the two energies of those cards. If we look at the Fool as potential energy is where an energy exists unaffected by its surroundings. It is just in potential. Nothing has happened yet. Nothing is affecting it. It just exists. Now, a lot of us, when we're in a situation, when we're facing the unknown, like that. We like the idea of a potential as yet unrealized. We would rather sit in the space looking at potential in front of us, rather than taking the leap into something which may not fulfill that potential. In fact, we don't often go as far as even confronting that. We just leave that delicious potential in front of us going, well, we'll get to that at some point. Tomorrow, maybe. Right? Because nothing can touch potential. Potential exists all on its own until it becomes kinetic. Now, the Magician in tarot describes kinetic energy, and kinetic energy is where energy is now in motion and is subject to the effects of its surroundings. It can be influenced by what's going on around it. So the Magician has to sort things out while also contending with the energies that surround it, around us. And that's us. That's what we do. So what stops us making the jump often is that we don't feel that we have what we need, or we don't have enough confidence in ourselves to figure it out as we go along. And when we look ahead, all we see is the space, the big grey fog of nothingness, and it's terrifying. And so our brains immediately shy away from it. They don't want to engage with it because it's terrifying, because it's fear itself. So let's just understand a little bit about why it's so terrifying. Why do we find it so terrifying? Because we have a very ancient lizard part of our brain. Well, it's called the lizard brain. So it's like the oldest part of our brain there is. It was the part that first adapted, and it's primeval. So when we were in our very earliest incarnation, having to survive in the wild, when there were, I don't know, saber-toothed tigers or wolves or whatever, were prowling around us, and we looked into the savannah or the forest and we couldn't see what was out there, as I'm looking out here into these woods, all I can see is trees. I can't see what's out there. There might be something dangerous in them there woods. There might well be. And my brain tells me to be careful, because I don't know what's in there, and I might get lost and I might not find my way back. And anybody who knows me knows I was born without a sense of direction, so probably 30 seconds down there I'd completely lose my bearings and I'd be wandering around for hours. Anyway, that's just me. The fact is that our lizard brain looks into an area that it can't read, that it doesn't have a movie for, and goes, danger, 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 and fills your psyche with every kind of potential threat that there may well be on its horizon, because it wants you to know it can't read it. So therefore it just runs through a list of all the things, all the worst case scenarios that may well happen if you go ahead and do that thing that it can't read, just to make sure you don't. Why does it do that? Well, the fact is we all have a movie running in our heads all the time, and that movie is not real. We think it's real, but it isn't real. Now, it to be honest with you, 98% of the time it plays out, but it's an invention. So when we look along the path, our brains create a movie of what it thinks we should expect. So in 10 minutes time, I may get up from this spot, I'll go down back to our camper van, and I'll make a cup of tea probably, and I'll do my next reading or whatever, and that's pretty much what I expect will happen. Something different might happen, but it's improbable. So I feel fairly confident that the afternoon ahead will go pretty much how I expect it to go, all bar irritants or other things. So even though I think there may be things I don't expect anything cataclysmic, right? And that's the point. My brain has mapped out a risk assessment of my afternoon, and it has pronounced it pretty safe. And that's okay, and I feel cool about that. But what happens when your brain can't map out the future? What if you're looking ahead and you want to leave a job, or you want to leave a relationship, and you look ahead and you just don't know if it's going to be better or if it's just going to be horrible? And so your brain tells you that probably it's better to stay safe, better to stay devil you know rather than the devil you don't, right? Because you just don't know. And so you do. You stay safe. You don't make the change. But what if you did? What would happen? Would it be as bad as your brain tells you it could be? Probably not, in reality. Because when we're dealing with what's actually right in front of us, even if it's a bit distressing or even if it's not what we want, we're pretty good at coping with it most of the time. We might have a bit of a meltdown here and there, but we deal with it. We cope. We're grown-ups. We do. We're not made of china. Well, I mean, some of us are made more of china than others, but we don't die, guys. And we learn and we grow. And we have the opportunity to make something better happen, but our brains won't let us. They won't let us get past the potential, because daring to want something more, daring to want more for yourself, just feels like too much of a risk. And in tarot, if we look at the card we have for that, it's the Four of Pentacles, where we've reached this point where things are sort of stable and knowable, and we don't want to risk losing what little we've got in the pursuit of something better. And what is the danger if you're in a relationship which is not happy? What is the danger? That you regret it later? That you end up alone with 1 bar electric fire and 19 cats? You know what? You would figure it out. And you know what? That wouldn't happen. You'd go from day to day, you'd meet new people, you'd do new things, different things would happen, a different life experience would be had. What if it was better? What if the space, instead of being that grey expanse of nothingness, that grey, horrible, scary void that feels like a kind of death, what if that space was a white, clean ozone, a white, clean canvas on which you could make something new happen? What if the space was just cleanliness, was just a blank canvas ready for a new painting? You can choose the painting. You get to do the painting. Are you going to make a great painting, or are you going to just make another mess? And even if you make another mess, it doesn't matter, because guess what? You can always make a new painting. And if we look back into our lives, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and we look at what we're doing now, hopefully, I don't know if you're anything like me, but when I look back 5 years ago, look at your Facebook videos and memories, you would never have imagined you were doing this 5 years ago. I'm sitting here in this forest in France, and 5 years ago, I can honestly tell you, I didn't believe this would ever happen. I didn't believe I would be on a 2-month trip going around France, working and traveling. At that point, that seemed like an impossibility. Things change if we allow them to. If we engage ourselves in possibility, and we're proactive, and we don't allow fear to make our decisions for us, the space is not scary. Not if we really lean in. The space can be amazing if we just allow it. If we can step into the personification of the Magician card, if we can step into that personal power, we get to master ourselves, right? Which means mastering our fear, being able to confront our fear, understand that it's always going to be there, but not let it drive, not let it take control. Tell it that it's fine, you understand it's scared, but you've got this. What if we could live like that? Wouldn't that be better? So next time you're confronted with the desire to do something, and find yourself sliding away from the decision because of the space, just try and stay there. Just try and reframe that space, something different, as possibility. And that if you could just walk into it, what could you make happen? It might be amazing. It's worth a try. So that's my thought for the day. I hope it's useful, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.